schedule for today is just we'll review what we did yesterday. Then let's go through how to know the SAP system details. Then we'll find out what are the standard clients and users which are delivered by SAP. Then
Sir, your voice is not that clear.
not clear.
Yeah.
Now it is clear.
I can hear you, sir, clearly.
Now the chat is better now.
Okay.
Yeah, you are.
Okay. Then we'll look at the SAP instance profiles, etc. Then the important parameters in the instance profiles. Then we'll have a look at the Oracle directories and the SAP directories. Let's see how Oracle patching is done, and let's see how the kernel can be upgraded. So these are the points which I have put in today. Let's see how many we can finish it. And yesterday we had some we'll review yesterday's what we did yesterday. Okay, we went through this particular slide where we said that SAP Basis is the core of the entire SAP system. Then we saw this presentation layers, the applications layers, and the database layer. This is a
Can you see Srinivas screen?
1 minute. 1 minute. I think I didn't share that. 1 minute. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I didn't share it. Okay. Now you can see it. You're able to see?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can see you, sir.
Sorry. Yeah. So we'll just review yesterday what we did, and these are some of the things which I said we'll go ahead with today. Okay. So this is the basic architecture of any SAP system: presentation, application, and database. That is what we saw yesterday. This is again a dual stack system wherein you have got you can access through ABAP as well as Java. Then again, this is the ABAP application server. This thing wherein you log in through the GUI, then you come into the application status wherein the dispatcher manages the work processes, and then it accesses the database, and then fetches the information and sends it back to the user. This is a typical Java cluster installation wherein web client is nothing but the browsers, and this ICM is the Internet Communication Manager, which manages the request from HTTP or HTTPS, and then again it will fetch data from the database and then it send it back. The message server manages the request, and NQ services manages the locking mechanism in the Java cluster. So again, you could have a multiple servers here accessing the database. So this is a typical installation. Then we saw how the SAP GUI looks like. This is the SAP GUI wherein you have got all the servers and their corresponding parameters, like the system ID, system instance number, the IP addresses, etc., and their description. Then we saw how there are two options in which by which you can make connections to SAP. One is a direct server access, wherein you give all the details of the application server. For example, you give the instance number, system ID, etc. If you are logging in through the VPN, then or the SAP router, then you need to give the SAP router string. Then there is another. Then we will discuss regarding the instance numbers. What should be the instance numbers in a particular system? For a SAP system with same system ID, you should have different system numbers. Okay, so that's what we discussed yesterday. Then we were discussing regarding the SAP log and load balancing. In this case, you give the message server IP and the details from the log on load balancing. Whatever servers you have configured will come up here, and then you select the group or the server from here. So that's what we saw. Then we saw how when we click on the connection, which is the first screen that comes on the for display. So you will get the client number, the user ID, and the password, and the language. So we discuss how different languages are available in SAP, how you need to install if it is not available, etc. Then there are different types of instances which are there: the dialog instances, the central instances, and the database instance. Dialog instances are used basically to distribute the load on the production system. They are basically available, they are basically connected to production systems only. Other systems, it is available on, it is configured as central instance and database instance. So the central instance comes with additional services of message server and the NQ service. NQ service manages the locking mechanism. Message server manages the request coming from the other application servers, and then it manages the dispatcher queue. Okay. Database instance is basically running the database, where you have got your Oracle services. For example, if it's you have got an Oracle database, you have got Oracle services which are running on that database, and they connect to the database. In short, we discussed what are the different kinds of work processes. For example, dialog, update, background, NQ, and spool. These are the main. Dialog is for interactive users who log in into the SAP system, then make their entries and then log off. Update is a process where the database gets updated. It's a process which takes your once you press the save button, it goes back to this update work process activates, and then it updates the database. Background, as I said, it is used for processing of reports, etc. NQ is managing the log tables. Spool is for managing the spool requests. Here you can see the different types of work processes which are there. This particular thing, it shows running means it is occupied. Others are waiting, in the sense they are ready to manage the request from the users. I've just taken out some of the parameters from the instance profiles. See, basically instance profile contains a lot of parameters, but these are the parameters which are used for configuring the dialog work processes. Now here, like we saw 10 dialog work processes here. Suppose you want to change them to say 15. So this is the parameter which is used for changing the dialog work processes. Okay, this is BTC is for background work processes, SPO is for spool work process. So this way you can make the changes here in the instance parameters, and then it will get activated. Then these are the SM51 is the transaction code which shows the active servers in the system. This is again the active servers. Here it shows only a single server, but you could have multiple servers which could be active or maybe shut down. So this is the status you can check here. If it is down, then you need to check what is the problem. So we left here and we had to continue with once you log in, how to check the it's not open with me. Okay, 1 minute. So we'll be continuing with this we had left here. Okay. So when we log in into the system, basically what happens is we would like to know on what kind of setup this system has been configured. Okay, we the SAP security team provides us with the client, so and the user ID. So using the client and the user ID, we log in into the system, and we would like to know what are the details, more details about the system. So there is an option wherein here if you see in the main menu, this is the option called system. When you click on system, there is another option within that system wherein it is there you click on status. So once you click on that, this is the screen that is displayed. It displays the client which you have logged in, which is the with which user you have logged in, what is the language which you are using, and these are the previous logon details, etc. Then it shows what is the transaction code you are using, etc. So these are the details. See, these details are required by the ABAPer. So whenever he is analyzing something, so he requires these details. So you will wonder why this is given to us. But these details are required by ABAPers. But then comes the SAP system data. So here you will find the installation number and the license. So in this screenshot you will find, see, whenever a SAP system is installed, by default they allow you around 30 days of usage. So 30 days you can use the system, but after that the system you cannot use it because the license expires. So initially when the system is installed, you will find that the installation number is temporary and it is for 30 days only. So you need to download your license from your SAP marketplace and then install it in the system. Then what happens is, then the, whatever installation which is there, that number comes up here. Okay, and then the license which you have had with SAP, so that expiry date comes on here. Typically it is 99999 because I mean, no one buys a license for 1 or 2 years because it's a ERP system. Then this switch, it shows whether your system is a Unicode compliant or non-Unicode. So from here you will come to know whether your database is Unicode or non-Unicode. If this is not your Unicode, then again there is separate process where you need to convert your system to a Unicode system. Then coming down, you will find this is another related to the host system. Host system is on which server this installation, the SAP installation is running. So this is running on, say, Linux. Then the machine type. Then here the server name is there. Here the server name, in the sense, this is basically the host name of the server. Then we have got the database details. The database system is nothing but the database ID which you have, like system ID we have given. You need to give the database ID also. So the database details are there. This is the schema. Then the release of the database, the host on which the database is running. Because as I said earlier, you could have the database running on the same host, or you could be running the database on a separate host. So if it is running on the same host, you will have this host name and this host name same. Otherwise, it will be different. Okay. Then there is a single the user which is accessing the database. So that user ID is there. Okay. Now this is related to your user, SAP data, system data, etc. So here you get most of the information. Okay, of the host. Now here below you will find this is one tick, this green and yellow kind of a button is there. Okay, so you will come to that later. Now here on top, regarding the SAP system, you will find that there is a button called See Details. So when you click on this magnifying glass, you get these details. We'll come to that. This is more in detail. Sorry, the same thing is in detail over here. Okay, so when you click on the See Details magnifying glass, you will come to this screen. Okay, so here it will show you all the software components which are installed in this particular system. Okay, see, this is very important for the basis guy, because he knows this component, let us say SAP_basis. This is running with release 755, and this is the support pack level. See, what happens is you may install this with 755, but there could be additional support packs which are available on the SAP marketplace. Even that you need to download and apply those. Okay, so what happens is whenever you are downloading, that is at a particular the download is of a particular date. After that, SAP releases the patches. So what you do is you finish your installation. After installation, you need to check whether you have got additional patches which you would like to install for these particular components. So for example, STPI, there is one component called STPI. So here the release is 740 and the support pack level is 14. So this way there are many software components which you need to install. So that is installed, and here you get to know what are the levels. See, why these levels are important, I will tell you. For example, we have talked about SAP notes. Notes are nothing but source code corrections to the SAP system. And if you need to apply a particular note is basically what happens is some source code or there is some modification to the source code or some functionality that is getting modified using the SAP node, tech note basically. So and each SAP node has got they have got something called prerequisites. So if you have got let us say SAP basis with release 755 and support pack level 5, only then you will be able to apply it. So you should be able to read those notes and understand this. So so it helps basis guy to tell the functional team that okay, this note can be applied, cannot be applied, and it becomes easy for you to analyze. And because many times what happens is there are multiple notes to be applied, and you need to read each of the notes and then reply to the functional team whether they can be applied or not. Okay. Then here you will find there is another tab which is called installed product versions. Okay, so let's look at that. So this is again the same thing has been scrolled. So there are many components. This is related to HR. So this is again the same thing scrolled, again scrolled. So whenever you are supplying, suppose someone asks you for what are the software components installed, you need to download everything and then send it to them. Okay. So we'll look at installed product versions. So for example, in this particular server, S4HANA on premise is installed. 2020 is the year. Again, S4HANA Foundation is installed. ABAP platform is installed. SAP Fiori for S4HANA is installed. And this is SAP Fiori FES. I'm not aware of this. Okay, so these are installed. Fiori is a front end, the new front end which is there. So this is that particular component. So this way you will know what is installed on these products on these servers. Okay, this is very important. Again, like I said, when you click on this small button, green and yellow, it will take you to another. It will open another window, pop-up window, wherein it will show you what is the kernel information. See, kernel is basically the executables, you can say. These are the executables which are running on the operating system, either on a Windows platform or Linux, or let's say AIX or any Unix system and so on. So they run in tandem with the Oracle database as well. So you will have Oracle, you will have your operating system, then you will have the kernel. So your kernel will depend on what kind of database you are running and what kind of operating system you are running. So depending on that, you will download that kernel and install it. But when you are doing a fresh installation, that is available on your CDs or whatever you have downloaded, it is available there. But again, as I said, for this support packs, even the kernel gets upgraded. So what you are advised is, once you install a SAP system, you should also upgrade your kernel. So once a fresh installation is done, you run the system for 2-3 days. After that, what you can do is you replace the old kernel which you have installed with the new kernel. So you download the new kernel and install it. So you will have the latest, like for example, SAP, you will have all the support packs, latest support packs along with the latest kernel. So that gives a benefit to the users that they are running the latest this thing. They are on the latest SAP patch levels, so you will get less queries. So this is regarding the system details, which is shown in this. Now we'll start with our today's this thing. For example, anyway, any questions about till now? Hello.
No, sir.
No problem. Okay. See, once you install SAP, SAP, like I said, SAP delivers standard clients and standard users also. So some of the standard users
Sir,
are,
one query.
yeah.
Do we have any trial version of this one where we can practice or something like that?
We are planning that, but we thought initially we'll give you this introduction, and then as soon as we get a server, then we will show it to you how it is.
Okay.
So that is being scheduled. So once that, because we thought the first few days, we will give you an introduction, and then I will show you how to log on to the system, etc., and then we can show you the actual system. So give us 1 or 2 days. We'll then show you that also.
Okay, sir.
No problem. We will be showing you that. That's not a problem. So for example, SAP delivers users called DDIC. DDIC is basically a data dictionary user. It has got a lot of authorizations. Then there is some user called SAP Star. Again, this is used for the initial creation of a client. For example, as I said, SAP delivers say 001 client. But once it is delivered, you should be able to log on to that SAP Star or DDIC. So all these users have got standard passwords. Okay, and these passwords you need to change it once your SAP has been installed. So for example, you have got a client called 001, that is standard client which is delivered. So you log in into the system as SAP Star, and then you, let us say you need to create a copy of 001 as say 510. So you will be logging in as SAP Star. They give you the default password. Then you log in. Then you create a client called 510. Then there is something called a client copy, which we will see in the later parts how a client copy is done. And then you copy client 001 to 510, and then it starts the client copy. Once the client copy is done, let's say client 510 is created, then you log in as client 510, you give the user ID as SAP Star, and then log in with the default password. And after that, then you start your activities of customizing, creation of users, etc. Okay, so these users are given for you to start off. Now for example, the last user TMS ADM, that is an internal user which is used for transport management system. Okay, so these are the standard, they come with standard default passwords, and you need to change them once you have created the system. Then comes there is something called because there is one transaction code called SUIM. This is for this is basically a user information management transaction code, where it lists all the as per your requirements, what are the different users, which are the dialog users, which are the background users, etc. So that you can identify using this transaction code called SUIM. This transaction code is mostly used by the SAP security team, but wherever there is a common team, it is used by both. Okay, so the below screenshot is basically, this is again available in SAP. This you need to check it. For example, I said these are delivered by SAP. Okay, and here you will find that the password, if the password is trivial, you need to change that. Okay, so wherever it is not trivial, it is okay, and wherever it is trivial, you need to change it. So you run this program, and then you will come to know what are the users for which you need to change the password. Okay, so this is a small list which is there. Now we will go to the instance profiles. See, whenever SAP system is installed, uh, the SAP system, when it starts, it has got the instance profiles are created at the operating system level. Okay, so you will have 3 profiles for each instance. One is a default profile, another is a start profile, and the third one is the instance profile. So in the recent versions, the start profile and the instance profile has been merged into a single instance profile. So the default profile, what it does is it has this default profile works for the entire SAP system. For example, you have I'll just give an example. I'll close this. For example, let's talk about default. See, this is applicable all SAP systems, in the sense all connected servers, you can say all SAP connected systems, okay, which are running on, say, single system ID. Okay, so here what I mean is, for example, I will give a very good example of the PA password policy. Now this password policy should not be instance specific. For example, you have got DB plus CI running on a system, then you have got app server 1, 2 and 3. So all the users who are logging on into this particular system, they should have a single password policy. So these parameters of the password will be kept in the default profile. Okay, so that means anyone who logs in, they will have a standard same policy applicable across the entire SAP system. Okay, so this is a very good example of how you have to enter the whatever is going to be common across the SAP system will go into the default profile. Okay, or another example is for example, HTTP ports. For example, you would like to have the standard ports which should be open to this SAP system, so that you can put it in your default profile. Okay, like that. So that decision you have to take it, and then decide where what should be located. Okay, then coming to the instance profiles, these are specific. See, why these are specific to the app servers is because it depends on the memory requirements of each of the servers. Some of the servers could have very good CPU and memory, and some of them could be of a less you can say less capability. So depending on that, you will allocate the memory requirements, the dialog word processes, the the different spool processes, the background processes, and etc. So instance profiles will be different for each of the system. Okay, so let's have a look at those profiles. And the default profile is named like this, default.pfl. Then the start profile is named like this. This is the host name. Then the instance profile is named like this. SID is the system ID, and then these are the different processes which are, like we saw, D is for dialog, V is for update, E is for enqueue, B is for background, M is for message server, and so on, G is for gateway, and so on. So if you are having only a dialog, then you may not have, all these may not be there. You will have just D and the instance number. So here what you see 00 is the instance number. So depending on the instance number which you are given during installation, that will come here. So if it is 01, 02, 03, accordingly that number will come here. So these profiles are automatically generated when you install a SAP system. Okay. So as I said, the start profile is now merged with the instance profiles. So this is just the same thing I have as I mentioned. See, this default is one per system, and it is common for across. It contains the parameters which are common to all the instances of a system. Okay, this is for starting the system. When you're starting the system, let us say either on a Windows system or a Linux, so at that time it will just have a look at this particular start profile, and then it will start the system. These are related to the instance, like number of work process, like I said, memory, etc. So this is again one per instance. Now this particular log is I am showing you of after the SAP has been installed, you need to import these into your SAP system. See, there are two things. One is you have installed system, and the profiles. The profiles are on the OS. You have started the system. You have started the system, then you are logged in. Okay. Now you would like to import these profiles into the operating system, into the SAP system. Why this is required is because you should be able to manage these profiles from within SAP. See, it is not right for the basis administrators or the monitoring team to every time access the operating system, because it is very critical. Suppose you access the operating system, and by mistake if you delete one of the instance profiles or something, then your system will not start, or sometimes accidentally these things happen. So you need to log in and then import these profiles for maintenance. So once it is imported, what happens is you log on to the SAP system. Whatever parameters you want to change, you can change it from within the SAP system and then save it. So next time your system is restarted, it will pick up the latest. Okay. So import, login, and then import. After importing, you can make the changes. So this particular screenshot shows how the profile is imported from the operating system. So here it shows, from this particular drive, user SAP TST is their system ID, sys profile default. This is getting imported. So here it shows the following default profile is imported. Then this is the instance profile which is imported. This is default, this is instance, this is start profile. So the entire thing has been imported, and if there are some any errors, it will display it here, or if there are some warnings, it will display it here. So that is the way. First, this is to be done only once. Once your system is installed, this is to be done once. Then it is always available in the SAP system. So if you want to do the maintenance in the sense you want to make changes to the SAP profiles, you want to add new profile parameters as recommended by SAP, or there are some nodes which say that okay, you need to add this profile, or you want to change the HTTP or HTTPS ports and so on. So you will be using a transaction code called RZ10, and then it will ask you which profile you would like to change it, and then you can use this RZ10 transaction code to do that. RZ11 is you can display that particular parameter and know more about it. Okay, so then there is a documentation available for each parameter. So you can just put the parameter there, and there are more than let us say more than 200 parameters in the instance profile. There are some default, but in the instance profile includes only those parameters which you would like to apply. All others are by default. Okay. So RZ11 will give you the details regarding each of the parameter which you would like to. Uh, Also, you have to remember that just adding a parameter is of no use, because there could be dependencies. Suppose you are adding particular, say, memory parameter, and then you need to read the documentation, which also says that, for this particular parameter you need to add additional one or two parameters. So those dependencies you should be able to understand, and then accordingly tune the parameters, and then enter it in the instance profile or the default profile. So this is just the management data which is managed here. So in this is a start profile which is there. So here it shows how it has been created, and if you want to make any changes here, you can make them. So this is just the you can say the administrative data which is managed here. This is the instance profile. So here, if you see, there is something called basic maintenance, and there is something called advanced extended maintenance, they call it. So in basic maintenance, let us say now here, if you see the number of work processes, now there are the number of work processes here are shown as 4. You want to make it as 10, so you can just click on this arrow, and then it will increment it to by 1, and then you can increase the parameters here. Suppose the background processes are 2 and you want to make it 4, so you can. So basic maintenance you can manage it from here. You want to make changes to the different buffers of the SAP, of the ABAP buffers, etc. So you can make those changes here. Okay. So this is basic maintenance. In addition to this, there is something called extended maintenance. So extended maintenance also you can go there, and there it doesn't show you like this. It's not user friendly. You just enter the parameter which is available to you, and then give the value to it. That's all. Okay. So this is what we saw. One is import of the profiles, then how those are modified using RZ10. If you'd like to know more about each parameter, you can go to RZ11. There you will also come to know the documentation and also the dependencies. So let's look at
RZ10 and 11 are transition codes, right?
Yes. 10 RZ10 and 11 are transaction codes. Okay. Then let's have a look at, now we have seen that we have installed the SAP system. We know what are the standard clients, what are the standard users, etc. But at the operating system level, you need to know the SAP directories wherein what is lying. Okay. So let's have a look at the directories which are created. So these are the standard directories which are created on the operating system. Now this is typical to see, the directory names are same across your Windows system or a Unix system. Okay. So for example, this is on a Unix system wherein this slash indicates is the root system, and under it there is one directory called USR, user, and then there is one directory called SAP. Okay. Again, I have compiled the entire list in this document, so just we'll have a look at that also. So you will have root, user, SAP, and this SAP SID is the system ID which you have given when you install the SAP system. Okay. So for example, if it is CMP or CGD or CGQ, so that particular directory is created here, and under it these are the directories which are created. For example, user, SAP, CMP, sys. Under this you will find global, profile, exe, and then these subdirectories. And if it is your, let us say it is only your dialog instance, then it will be say D00 or D01, and under it you will find this log data, etc. Then these are the, see, this ASCS and ERS, these are basically required when you are configuring a high availability system. So not necessary that these two directories will be available in a regular system, So depending on the way which the instance is being configured, so those directories will be available. But here everything is taken up. Then under this you will have another directory called SAP MNT. These are physically shared. See here they have identified these are the local directories. These are again logically shared, and this is physically shared. Okay, so basically logically in the sense what happens is there is a link to it. Whatever the contents in global are available here, or whatever the contents in profile are available here. Okay, so here you can see they have mentioned it's a symbolic link. Symbolic link in the sense whatever changes you made here or make here, it will be available in this area also. Okay, now let's have a look. For example, this ASC is ABAP Central Services and the NQ Application Server. These two are used.
Can you re-explain me this thing? I did not get you.
Yeah. See, yeah.
In a simpler way.
Yeah, I'll make it very simple. See, you have got this. These are the directories which are locally available on the server where you installed. Okay. These are logically shared in the sense, say, let us say you are connecting your additional application servers. Okay, you are connecting app server, etc. So these physically shared directories, they are available on your application server as well. For example, you are connecting your app server 1. Okay, so app server 1, the profile is taken from this particular directory, because all those instance profiles, default profiles, everything is coming from this particular directory. This is shared, physically shared. So from here it will pick up the profile of that particular app server. Then here you will find this is exe. This exe contains the SAP kernel, the executables. Okay, so again, see, let us say you have got, I'll give one example here. Let us say you have got DB. Let's say you have got, this is your central instance. You assume that this central instance has got all these directories. We'll take one this thing. We can take this user SAP. I'll take the directories. I'll say CMP profile.
So should I learn all these commands?
No, you don't have to learn all these commands. I'm just explaining. You don't have to learn all this. These are directories which are already created. Now these are created automatically. Okay, so you don't have to learn of this, but you should know about it, that which are the directories. Okay, so let us take these two directories. Suppose now you are connecting your app server. You are now creating one new dialog server. Okay, you are creating a new dialog instance. So when you are creating this new dialog instance, what this dialog instance requires, it requires the profiles, the start profile, the default profile, and the instance profile. So these are stored in this shared directory, because you have to tell when you are configuring the dialog instance, you have to, during installation, it will ask you where is your central instance. So you will have to tell that, okay, my central instance is this particular, this is my central instance. So you will have to give the details of the central instance. Once you give the details of the central instance, it will access these directories and tell you, okay, this is the directory where the profile, the new profile which is to be installed, will be copied here or created here. Then the exe, for example, the exe which is already installed on the instance server, the same kernel has to be used by the application server. Okay, so for that, then because this is already installed on the central instance, you cannot have different kernels running on different app servers. You should have the same kernel. from the central instance. So what happens is there is a process once you connect your dialog instance to your central instance, all the kernel files get copied from there onto the dialog instance. Okay, and then it will start the instance. So that is why if you look at this particular area, that's why it is physically shared across the other app servers. Everything else is not shared, but only this particular area is shared because it contains the profile and the executables. Okay, you will require Java, you will require Unicode, non-Unicode, so those things are shared. Others are not shared. Okay. So this is specific to the SAP directories. Okay. Now coming to and these two, as I said, ASCS and ERS, that is only created when you're configuring the high availability system, like cluster nodes we are configuring, then only it is coming into picture. Okay. Yeah, these are the different directories which I've jotted down here. For example, user SAP SID is your system ID. This particular directory, user SAP trans, which is here, user SAP trans, this one. Okay, this is basically used for transport management. So like I said in the very first day, I explained to you the change management. For example, you will have how will you take care of new programs which are developed, or new customizing, how are you going to transport that from your development to quality to production. So for that, all those transport requests, they call it the transport request. Transport request is nothing but a small container or a transport request. It has got some ID, and that data is stored in this particular directory, user SAP trans. Okay, and then from here the data gets transported to the subsequent systems called the quality system and the production system. Okay, so this is ASCS and ERS. Again, these two are only for high availability. This contains the D001, 02, 03, whatever the instance number. This is related to your dialog instances. So if it is your central instance, then it will have all the like we saw DVE, BMGS. It will have all the other work processes or those services available on the central instance. Okay, these are the directories which we saw. Some of them are shared. These three are shared across the other dialog instances. Okay, so same thing I have just jotted down so that it becomes easy for you to understand. Then there is one directory called local directory which is created called user SAP host control. It has got this host control. Basically, earlier we had got a program called SAP OS call. Okay, it collects the local data from the server, and that is required for. So basically, it is whatever events are taking place on the operating system that gets collected here. So what SAP has done is it has got rid of that SAP OS call, and then it has come up with this host control. So you need to install this separately. So it runs on a separate directory called host control, user SAP host control. So it collects your local details of the operating system and that server. For example, what is the memory, whether there is some errors on this system, and so on. So, and then that is provided for monitoring purposes. So this is that host control. Not much here. Now let's have a look at the Oracle file systems. Like we saw SAP, we also have got, because whatever database you are going to install, even that has to has to reside on some file systems. Okay, so I have taken the file system, typical file systems from a Oracle database which is installed. So for example, you will have Oracle and the database ID. Like I said, you will have system ID. So you may have the same system ID like SAP, or you can use a different SAP or database ID as well. But as a practice, everyone uses the same. If it is used, say user SAP CMP is used, then you can use the same here also, because it becomes easy to understand. If you're using a different, that SAP allows, that is not a problem. So under Oracle, you will get DB-SID. So this is your Oracle home. For Oracle user, Aura SID. Aura SID is basically the OS user which is created on the operating system. So what happens is for there are two users which are created. SID ADM. This is for SAP related, and another is not only Oracle, but this is for Oracle, right? This is Aura SID. So the two users are created here, and you need to use these. You need to log in as these particular users, and then manage SAP related SID ADM and Aura SID. So so you need to log, because these two users have got specific permissions to manage either SAP or the database. Okay, so basically what I mean by that is, suppose you are logged in as SID ADM, then maybe you will not be able to run a SQL script, or you may not be able to manage the Oracle related scripts and tools from SAP. Okay, so you need to ensure that you are the same. Then Oracle has got its online redo logs, which are resident in Origlog A, Origlog B, and then Mirrorlog A, Mirrorlog B. This is basically standard Oracle. If someone is knowing Oracle, they will know that, okay, these are the online redo logs. See, online redo logs is nothing but Oracle is undergoing changes whenever the database is running. So whatever changes are being taken place, so every change is stored in these particular online redo logs. And once the change is getting committed into the database, it creates something called a offline redo log. So that goes into SAP Arc. So this is the directory called SAP Arc, and the data goes into that. No, these are the archive logs. Sorry, it goes into Aura Arc. So these are the offline archive logs. So it goes here, Aura Arc. SAP Arc is the log file which is created. Okay, so it goes into Aura Arc. Then SAP Reorg is a directory wherein, suppose you are extending a table space, you are doing some activity on the database. So those logs are written down here. SAP data 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. up to, you can increase this 10, 11, 12. These are the data files. So you need to understand that Oracle has got SAP comes with, when installed on Oracle, comes with standard table spaces, and each table space is connected with the data files. For each of the table space, you'll have you can say the data files assigned to it. So, and then that much space is allocated to the table space, and then the data files are lying in these directories /Oracle /CMP /SAP data 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. Okay, these are the trace files wherein you can have a look at if there are some errors, etc. Then you can have a look at the alert log, alert_sid.log. Then it can this thing. You're taking, let us say, the Oracle database backup using the SAP tools BR backup, BR restore. So all those logs are stored here. So you can analyze those logs if you're having any errors or something. So that is about Oracle directory. So you need to know this, because in case you need to troubleshoot, so you need to know which directories to access, etc. So the same again, it's in a tree structure. Okay, SAP Prof here indicates that what Oracle SAP profile you are using, etc. Okay, that is there. Shall we continue? Yeah. So let's look at how Oracle patching is done. So let us say initially what happens is when you install your SAP system, it tells you to install the Oracle database as well. Like we installed SAP and then later on we patched it with the latest patch levels of the SAP. Then with Oracle also what you need to do is Oracle also come with a standard installation of Oracle, and you need to, if you want to patch it, then you need to download the patches from the SAP marketplace, and then you need to store those patches in a particular directory, and then there is a patch called opatch. There is one utility called opatch. You need to run that opatch utility. So here it shows, opatch apply. So it will search for that patch and then it will install it. For example, this patch is installed here uh, in this directory. You go to this particular Oracle home is basically the home directory of the Oracle /Oracle/ SID. So that that is the home, and from there if you run the opatch apply, it will pick up that patch and apply it. So here you will find that. So this way, now here in this example I've just shown you one patch, but there could be a bunch. There is something called a bundle patch also. So this is a single patch, but you could have a bundle patch which contains say 20, 30, 40 single patches. So you will download a bundle patch and then apply the entire bundle patch, so that you don't have to apply a single patch. Okay. So so you will take that bundle patch and apply it. Okay. So that is, with that what will happen is now your SAP server, all the patch levels are up to date, and your Oracle patch levels are also up to date. Okay. So this is the way you apply the opatch Oracle patches. This is applied. Okay, opatch succeeded. Then let's have a look at the SAP kernel. Like there are two things, basically three things. You have installed your SAP, then you have patched it. You have installed Oracle, you have patched it. Now that kernel also needs to be patched because you want to bring it to the latest level. Okay. So how can you do that? So once you log into your SAP system, you will come to know what is the present kernel level. Like we saw in system status, there also it shows. But if you go to transaction code SM51, okay, SM51, then here it will show you the server which is running. And if you click on this and then you click on the button called release notes, then it will show you all the details. This is the release information. Release in the sense what is the kernel release, etc. So all details are shown here. At the OS level, you can say display plus work. You can enter this particular command and enter it, then it will show you on the OS level what is the kernel release, etc. So here you will find it is the kernel release is 640, then patch level is 0, patch number is 405, and you want to upgrade it to the higher patch level, say 500 or something. So that is this is the way you can have a look at this. Okay. Now let us see how the kernel is basically installed. Okay. Now this access to this marketplace is only to the customers. We don't have access to this, but I thought I'll take a screenshot of this. So this is they call it the SAP support marketplace. So for this you require a user ID and a password. So all people do not have access to this, but as basis administrators we have access to this because we need to download the data, we need to escalate issues, we need to know what are the nodes, etc., or we need to know what are the products available, etc. So you log on to the support portal, and then you go to let us say, for example, he is now downloading something for AIX, what are the patches, etc. So there are two files which you need to download for a kernel upgrade. One is that sapexe.sar. So it will have this sapexe underscore, some big name, but other details are provided here. Like what is the if you click on this patch, this particular info, you will get all the details of what is the patch level, etc. Then you download these two files. One is sapexe.sar, and another, see, one is related to your the SAP kernel, and another is related to your database. So depending on the database, either you're using Oracle. Again, see this, you could be running Oracle on Linux, you could be running Oracle on AIX, you could be running Oracle on Windows. So depending on that, you will have to download your kernel. So you cannot have Linux kernel for Oracle and you have got an installation of Windows. So you cannot do that. You have to be specific and download only those. Okay. So here I've just gone through the how a typical kernel upgrade process is. Okay. So whenever any kernel is upgraded, because it is going to affect the entire SAP system. So it is always recommended that you shut down the entire SAP system, including your database, because you are also upgrading the kernel related to your database. So it is you shut down the entire SAP system. Okay, so that's why I put it at that 0 level. Then you create one directory called, say, you can correct one temporary directory, then copy those downloaded files into that directory. Okay, then there is this, if you see, look at the extension called SAR. Okay, SAR is basically SAP archive. Okay, so it has been compressed. You need to uncompress those using a utility called SAP car. So SAP car is a program. What it does is it uncompresses the data. If you're on a Windows system, you can just use unzip, or if you're on a Linux system, you can again use uncar. And or if they have given you a compressed copy of tar, then you need to use tar to uncompress the data. So depending on the operating system, you uncompress the files and then move it to this particular directory which you have created. Also create another see, what happens is when you are doing this kernel upgrade, sometimes what happens is your kernel may not work. Okay, so what you need to do is you need to keep a backup of whatever kernel presently you are running on. So you copy your create another directory, let's say old exe, and then copy the existing kernel from this particular directory, sap cmp exe. Cmp here, what I mean is the SID. Okay, the SID to this particular old directory, then copy the new kernel from so whatever you have uncompressed, you have to just copy it to SAP MS, SAP CMP. I'll make this SID, so it becomes easy for you to understand. Okay, so you copied there. Okay, so and then you can check whether the kernel has been upgraded by running this program display plus work at the OS level. And then you can what you need to do is on a Linux system, you log in as root and run a script called saproot.sh. Okay, this is a shell script which you need to run so that all permissions are in place, and then you can start the SAP system using start SAP R3, and then log on to the SAP system and run transaction code SM51 to check whether your kernel has been upgraded. For example, you run SM51 here on this system, and then you will come to know whether the kernel patch level has been incremented. Suppose this is 59, whether it is 95 or so on. So this will ensure that your kernel has been upgraded. Okay, so I think this is what I had planned to finish today. So if you have any questions, you can ask.
No questions, sir.
Okay. Arun has got any questions?
I think he is dropped off.
Acha, okay, I didn't see any of that. Okay, that's fine. So, so we'll continue with this tomorrow.